or a political gain. If you analyze all, only 2 wives were below the age of 36. All the other wives were between the age of 36 and 50. You can give instances. Each marriage had some reason. For example, Bibi Jawariya, who was from the Banu Mustalik tribe, which was a very powerful tribe and which was at loggerheads with Islam. After a certain time, they were suppressed by the Islamic army. And later on, the Prophet married her. And after he married her, the companion said, how can we keep as captives the relatives of the Prophet? And they freed those people. And after that, both these tribes became friendly. There are examples when he married Bibi Maimuna, may Allah be pleased with her, who was the sister of the wife of the chief of the tribe of Najd, which killed 70 Muslim men of the Islamic deputation. After Muhammad, may peace be upon him, when he married her, they accepted Medina as the leadership and they accepted Prophet as the leader. All the marriages which he did had some political reason or social reform. He married Habiba, who was the daughter of the chief of Mecca, Abu Sufyan. But naturally, this marriage played a great importance in the conquest of Mecca. Other example, like Bibi Safiya, may Allah be pleased with her, she was the daughter of a powerful Jewish leader. After this, the Jewish became very friendly with the Muslims. If you see, all the marriages had some social reform. He married the daughter of Hazrat Umar, Hafsa, may Allah be pleased with her, to get closer relationship between the companions. As a social reform, he married a lady who was divorced, the first cousin Zainab. After she was divorced, he married her. All the marriages have some political reason or social reform. So all his marriages were based to improve the community and to better relationship. It was not for sex. Hope that answers the question.
The next question, please.
I am Hasina for Awaz-e-Niswa and law students. I am asking you 2 questions, Mr. Zakir Naik. Okay. In what ways is the practice of polygamy determinantal beneficial to women?
Sister has asked the question, in what way is polygamy beneficial to the woman? Correct?
Yes. Yes. And another question, why do you think, why do you think women enter into polygamous marriages?
First she asked that why is polygamy beneficial to the woman, is why if a man marries more than one husband, how is it benefiting the woman? It's helping her to keep herself modest. Because if every man married one woman, there will be millions of women in the world who will not find husband. And the only option for them is to become public property. So polygyny is allowed in Islam to protect the modesty of the female, to prevent them from becoming public properties. Hope that answers the question.
Next question from the brother on the left.
My name is Muhammad Ashraf. My question is adoption allowed in Islam?
Brother asked the question, is adoption allowed in Islam? If by adoption you mean that you take a young child, a poor child, and giving lodging, boarding, clothing, bring it to a house, Islam has always stressed in the Quran that you should help the poor people, help the needy people. You can even get a child to your house and give him your fatherly love. What Islam objects to is you cannot legally adopt. You cannot give your name to the child. Legal adoption is prohibited in Islam. Why? Because if a person adopts a child legally, there can be several complications. First is that the child, whether it's a girl or boy, it will lose its identity. Point number 2, if suppose after you adopt a child, you may have your own children, no one can say that you will never have children throughout your life. If you have your own children, you will be biased towards your own child than the adopted child. Point number 3, if the children born to you, if they're opposite sex as that of the adopted child, they cannot freely stay in the same house because they aren't blood sisters and brothers to each other. If they adopt a child after he grows up, if it's a girl, after she grows up, she'll have to do hijab with the so-called father because he is not his original father. If the adopted child is a man, if it's a boy and he becomes elderly, he becomes a man. And then if he marries, again, there has to be hijab between the daughter-in-law and the so-called father. And there are several other reasons. And besides that, if you adopt a child, you will be depriving many of your relatives of the right. Because after a person dies, whatever property he has is divided according to whatever is mentioned in the Quran. If the person has children, and if he adopts a child, but natural, he will be depriving a share of his own child. If the person, if he dies, if he has no children, then the wife will get half the share as she should get if she had no children, including the mother. If there are children, she gets 1/6. If there are no children, she gets 1/3. Again, if you adopt a child, you are depriving the share of your mother. So to prevent these complications, legal adoption is prohibited in Islam.
The next question.
Assalamu alaikum. I'm Kamal Sayyed, Deputy Secretary, Home Department. In your elegant speech, you had mentioned that for a divorced woman, after the divorce, the husband looks after her during the period of iddat. Maintenance allowance is given to her. But after iddat, I presume that the parents are supposed to look after the girl. In case the parents don't have the provisions to look after the girl, I would ask you, what is the girl supposed to do?
Sister asked a very good question. That suppose a lady is divorced, it is the duty of the husband to provide support till the iddah period, which lasts for maybe 3 months or till pregnancy. After that, as I mentioned in my lecture, it is the duty of the the duty of the father or the brother to look after her. If suppose the father and the brother are unable to look after such ladies, it is the duty of the other close relatives to look after her. If the other close relatives not look after her, it's the duty of the ummah, Muslim ummah, that we should set up organizations and have zakat funds with we can look after such ladies. Even if this does not work, it's the duty of the Islamic State at the last resort to look after such ladies. Hope that answers the question.
Now we would start with some questions from the slips which have come. We'll have one question from the slip and one from the speaker, then again one from the slip, one from the speaker, one from the slip, one from the speaker, and so on.
Assalamu alaikum. I'm Sayyid Riyaz Teki. I'm in business. As you said, and as I know, that in Islam, men and women are equal. So why is it that a woman in Islam is not entitled to equal property rights? Thank you.
Brother posed a question that I said that in my lecture that economical rights of women and men are equal. So how come she is not entitled to an equal right when it comes to inheritance? And normally people say that the woman gets half the share as compared to that of the male. The answer to this question is given in the Quran, in Surah Nisa, chapter number 4, verse number 11 and 12, which gives the guidelines how the inheritance should be divided. It says Allah has ordained for you as regarding our children's inheritance. For a female, a share, half of that of the male. And if only daughters, 2 or more, they share in a 2/3. If only one, they get half. And the verse continues. And 1/6 share for the parents if the deceased has children. If you have no children, if the deceased has no children, mother gets 1/3. If the deceased has brothers and sisters, mother gets 1/6. And the verse continues, verse number 12 says, as in what your wife leaves, your share is half if there are no children, and your share is 1/4 if there are children. As in what you leave for your wife's share is 1/4 if there are no children, and 1/8 if there are children. In short, most of the time, the female gets